And are we still going live? Are we doing that still?
Oh, yes. If you guys want us to go live to answer any questions that you guys have, follow our IG page. We're going to post more details on that. And if we do go live, it's most likely going to be on IG. So that way people can join in, ask their questions. If they like, they can show their resume. Just make sure you remove any personal information. And we hope that you guys find value in that. And if you do, leave that in the comment section. Because if nobody finds value in it, there's no use in going live. But if you might find value in it and you do want to join the live, we might even add a wait list if we do start getting a lot of people saying that they do want us to go live with them. But again, you will be live for everybody to see because advice we might give you might be useful for others as well. What's up, Push the Prod Squad? Welcome to another episode of the Prodcast. It's your host, M, Charles, Mars. And today, I don't know if these guys are ready for it, but I have a topic for y'all that I believe is a true unpopular opinion. And I know you guys are probably going to disagree with me, but I believe tech is dead or is dying because from what I'm seeing, what I'm witnessing firsthand, I feel like we have reached a peak and now we're going down from that peak. And what are y'all thoughts on that so far?
Dead. First of all, I don't believe tech is dead. And that's crazy that you actually would say that with you also being in tech. But
yeah,
I feel like tech is a very lucrative avenue still to get into. There's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of different roles that you can go into within tech. It's just a lot you can do with it.
Yeah, let's break down what tech is dead means, because I think we're just entering a new age to where you can't do tech the same way we were doing it maybe 5-10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So the same, programs that are, or let's say, like the school programs that are out there, they're not teaching you what you needed to know to be within a lucrative tech business today. So yeah, let's break down what tech is dead actually means.
Okay, yeah. So when I say tech, I'm not specifically talking about like tech firms or tech companies. I'm specifically talking about the field of technology as a reliable career path. Okay. And saying this is pretty dangerous because, of course, there's still a lot of opportunities. Sure. And I feel like tech isn't the only thing on the that's going to be on the decline soon. But because of this big group, this big wave of people, this big influx going into tech, it's far more competitive. And also, let me backtrack a little bit more because I'm not talking about for people who are already in the field, mm-hmm. but it being that gold standard of an easy to break in field for people on the outside. Mm-hmm. I feel like that is definitely on the decline. Not only the competition, but because of advancements in tech, generative AI being the biggest one. And as that continues to grow, as that continues to advance, just the need for human talent is going to also further decrease because things are going to be able to be run more efficiently. Mm-hmm. Yes, it might create new positions and new opportunities, but I feel like the amount that it's going to replace or the amount that it may displace is going to be far more than the amount that it's going to create. So it might create more opportunities outside of working in tech, but again, within tech, I feel like those opportunities, we're going to start seeing them go down. And you can look at LinkedIn, for example. I like to always mention this. 2 years ago, or even less than that, you'll go on LinkedIn, you'll see a whole bunch of postings, cybersecurity, cloud engineers, project management, product management, and you'll see like 10 people applied, 5 people applied. Now you see, I saw one yesterday that had like 1,000 people applied to it. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, what is going on? This like, maybe it's just because I haven't witnessed anything like this firsthand before, but that is just not something that I feel like is a positive.
Then I would say that goes against your argument then. Because if you see a lot of people, are applying versus previously, I'd say, there's a lot more eyes on the industry. A lot more people are, trying to break through. It's just the shift in the actual position. So if we look at maybe, 10, 20 years ago, where there were actual, hardware engineers or companies would host their services on-prem. You had infrastructure engineers that, were responsible for the physical, compute and things like that. So with the shift to the cloud, those positions are shifted to cloud engineers, right? So instead of being responsible for the physical, servers and things like that, you now have engineers responsible for compute in the cloud, or not for the physical
But
things.
I feel like it was easy to make that move from infrastructure engineering into cloud engineering. If you worked in like VMware, vCenter, and making a shift, because the concepts were kind of replicated from that era, right? But to your initial point, seeing thousands of people apply to a position, I feel like that is not a good sign at all. It's a good sign to show that, yes, a lot of people are interested in tech, sure. But in regards to the amount of positions, you see less of them and more people applying. I feel like that's a huge red flag in regards to people who are turning their eyes towards tech. And this is not to discourage people from coming into tech, but it is to kind of let you know that you do have to be much more competitive. You can't come in with a simple boot camp, but you haven't been training on your self-hosted lab. Even if you have a degree, I still recommend having experience with all of these different tools that are specific to the field that you're trying to enter in. And I can't express how critical that is. And there are a lot of online resources that can help with this, but I do want to stress that it's not as easy to get in as it was previously.
Right.
And so you might see a lot of people online telling you to do this boot camp, do that boot camp. They can get you a job in 6 months. I'm not saying it's possible or impossible, but I personally, based on what I'm seeing, is no longer likely. But back in the day, a few months ago, maybe a year ago, I would say, oh yeah, do a boot camp. These people, everybody needs talent. Everybody needs talent. Yeah. But no longer can I vouch for that. If people say, oh, should I go into tech? If you're willing to put in the time and the effort to become great at something, then yes. But if you're not willing to put in that time, it's no longer, it's so challenging to find an entry-level position. I have a lot of people who I'm trying to help. I used to be able to help people get a position within a month or two. Now, we're both like, dang, what's going on? You told me to get my Security Plus certification. I got my Security Plus. You told me to do this.
We have to differentiate what's resulting because of our current economic state and what's, results because of the shift of where the tech industry is going. So
because right now it's not really specific to tech. There are really not any jobs.
Right. So I mean, like any industry right now, it's pretty bad because of
that's facts.
The coming recession. So if we look at maybe out 2 years or 5 years from now, if we're out of that economic state where companies are doing layoffs and things like that, they're purposefully trying to bring their head count down. So but outside of that, like how do you see you mentioned generative AI making tech a dead industry.
So what's your specific question on generative AI?
So like I mentioned, I think we're just shifting our positions from, like I gave the example from infrastructure engineer to cloud engineer. Maybe now instead of software engineer, you're shifting over to prompt engineering, to where we utilize these new tools that are coming out, or this new way of, of developing code, instead of to explicitly say these tools are getting rid of our jobs.
Yeah, so I see it going to be a very subtle change initially, whereas everybody's getting used to the technology, learning how to use it, learning how to make their teams more efficient. A lot of new companies are starting up. Everybody's focused on AI, and so now when you start having tools like let's say you have an EDR security tool, and it's able to do a lot of what you need an entry-level analyst to do, and it's able to do it in half the time. You no longer need a SOC of 10 people. You might just now need to have 2 good security engineers who know how to work with the tool, manage the tool, keep it up and running, and that tool can do half of what needs to be done, like all the heavy lifting, a lot of the digging in.
That's true, but you don't know how AI is going to play out in the future. It might be able to create more jobs as it's progressing. So
But like I try to look at what I can imagine, what type of jobs I can imagine AI tools creating. And I'm not all seeing. I'm not trying to say that I have it, but just based on my limited knowledge and extent of thought, I can't see too many jobs it creates in tech specifically. But I can see a lot of jobs it displaces in tech, and that is where my concern with generative AI is. But I do want to jump back to a point that Mars made about the economic state, and I feel like it's even hard to argue with this type of recession that we're in, that a lot of these layoffs are because companies are trying to, change their strategy to be more conservative with their funds and all of that, because we're not really seeing too much impact of this potential recession that we're in or going out. We don't even, it's hard to say what's going on with this recession. So initially, if you hear some of my other videos, I always talk about the being in the economic downturn or blah blah blah. But now I'm just not so sure that's the reason why we're seeing all of this happen. And I feel like it is a mix between. I feel like it's a mix between uncertainty to an extent, but mostly trying to make space for the potential of the technological changes that may be appearing.
Right, because pre-pandemic there was a lot of companies were overhiring, so
yeah.
a lot of people are saying this is now their chance to get rid of those people, with pinning that on the recession, but it's not really because of our economic state. It's because they overhired because all these new features, and they wanted to do all these new things in research and development, but basically saw themselves seeing, we overhired, we need to get rid of these people. Let's just say it's because of our economic state and because a recession is coming, and reduce our headcount. So I get what you're saying there.
Yeah, I was saying one company doing that, I feel like opens the floor for all the other, like, while they're doing it, so that we're not the bad guys. Everybody's the bad guy. We're the bad guy together. So I feel like that was another huge thing that helped those organizations do those mass layoffs like that.
No, for sure.
Right, because it's getting to the point where I saw someone mention, Amazon might be doing silent layoffs, where they're not even offering those employees severances, and it's not just in the tech industry; it's throughout the company wide. So
these companies are getting bold.
Yeah, if that's true and they do that, you're gonna see other companies, jump on that as well.
Yeah, and a huge thing is with the return to office, that is strategic. It's a way to get people to have to leave or to force them out, to decrease your head count, because over a span of a few months, we were hearing everybody talk about how great work from home is, how people are more proficient, how people are getting more work done. And then when we start hearing everybody is telling people to come back to work, now new studies are coming out saying, oh, being in the office helps people do this, do that. And yes, there are pros and cons to both, which is why I guess we're stuck in this hybrid state. But I feel like there is something else on top of that is kind of influencing it.
And it's even worse now, because before, when companies would bring up the idea of going back into the office, people were like, no, I don't care. I'm quitting or I'm finding another job. But now with this, economy, they're taking that bait. They're saying, yeah, everybody come back to the office. Do we really have a choice when you go on LinkedIn, like you said, and there's like 1,000 new job postings? So people are really at the whim of the organization at this point.
Yeah.
One thing I thought you were going to mention, if not tech, then where are these people going, right? So there was an article that came out. I don't know how true it is, but under UPS's new contract, how drivers are now making $170K a year. So let's talk about, if it's not tech, what other industries do you see, booming within the next couple of years?
Anything where technology can't truly extend its grasp is what I feel like is safe. So driving for now, until self-driving cars get to the level where it's dangerous. A lot of trucking, and I hate to say this because there are a lot of things outside of that. You can go into finance, go into accounting, but I don't feel like they're safe anyway either. I don't feel like accountants or people in the financial industry as a whole are protected. I don't believe going into law is protected. Well, to an extent, they're protected by law, to a certain extent. But again, if you're trying to be a paralegal, stuff like that. But yeah, it's going to be a tricky one that we navigate, not just as people trying to get into tech, but as a society. It's going to have to be something where legislation might have to be like, okay, let's stop here. We're replacing too many jobs. Yes, we have the ability to do that, and yes, it can save your company millions or billions of dollars by switching over to X, Y, and Z. But we have mouths to feed.
But would they step in and do that?
If they don't, Elon Musk, he mentioned that everybody's going to have a base salary. So you'll be at home and you'll make your 30 and 40K because the government just has to pay you.
Yeah.
So there might be new taxes that are introduced in that case, where they're like, okay, since you are using AI, and your workforce has dropped this much, you have to pay the workforce tax. Who knows? This is just
That's
theoretical.
Crazy. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but what I would say, this is not to discourage you if you are in tech or you're like I mentioned, you're in a boot camp or you just graduated. It's to kind of like to warn you, because we've mentioned this before, these tools that are coming out, if you're behind on them or don't know what's going on, then you're likely going to be one of those people who are replaced or hard to find a position. But definitely what I'm trying to say is use these tools to your advantage, right?
Yeah. So if you're trying to get a position, like we said, understand how AI is impacting the field, or the specialty that you're interested in, as well as just make sure you're learning. And for those who are in tech right now and just got into tech, I feel like you're okay, but make sure you grow quickly and make sure you strategize your finances correctly, because even though I've been in tech for almost 10 years now, I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe knowing not in the near future, like next 2-3 years, but I'm talking about 5 to 10 years. I don't know if it's going to be like, how you watch The Office, you saw how people stay in that same job for so many so many years and they get to retire. I don't know if things are going to be that sweet for our generation, if we're going to be able to get old with our coworkers and retire. So just pay attention.
But that's right. That complacency is something crazy.
Yeah.
I'd always say, like you said, just keep learning.
If you're applying and you're not catching anything, you're not landing anything, make sure your resume is very competitive. Make sure you have that 1-page resume. All of your details of all the skills you have is at the top, because again, they want to see what they need to see immediately, or they're skipping to the next resume. And a lot of them do have those scanners that are scanning for certain keywords. So if you do have that skill set, make sure you're including it on the resume, preferably towards the top. I know a lot of people like to put their objective and all of that in there, but I personally believe that's useless unless it's an internship. As some of you may know, we used to do resume reviews for all of our viewers who submitted their resume, and that was one of the biggest things I used to see. They'd have some experience, but they'll put it all the way at the bottom of their resume. So their skills and work history, they'll put it at the bottom. And some people who didn't even have the work history, but they done boot camps or they went to school, they have the skill set. One of the biggest recommendations we had was moving all of your skills to the top so they're easily visible. But yeah, message us if you have any questions about how your resume is formatted. We'll try to help. Again, we're not professionals, but we try to help wherever we can. But anyway, that's it for this episode. Again, we will post more information on the possibility of us going live. We just have to make sure enough people want us to do it so we can make time in our schedule to make that happen. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. I really hope you enjoyed this video, found it useful. Again, keep your eyes out. Make sure you pay attention to different trends. But that's Push the Prod, and that's the Prodcast.
Yes, sir.
All right, see.